Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of Midco Sports Network's North Dakota High School Playoff Roundtable. It is now the semifinal edition, and first off, thank you for all the views last week. Guys, we had about 600 views last week on our quarterfinal preview, which is pretty good. I'm sure they came for Brad's expert analysis, right, Brad?
Right, sure, yeah.
And we do have two of the best in the biz, Brad Anderson, Chase Miller, as we try to figure that out in the Zoom world. We're here to preview the state semifinal round. Like I mentioned, 16 teams playing for the 8 tickets up for grabs for Dakota Bowl 28. Before we get to previewing the 3A semifinals, guys, I want to go back to last week. What was the most surprising outcome for you? Chase, we'll go with you first.
I think just the disparity in which Velva beat Dickinson Trendy the first time around, being a one-score game, not so much that Velva won that game at home, but I think in the manner in which they won that game, how they were able to look really good, hold Jellick in check for the most part in that contest. Then Florence let Florence right. Here comes Jersey Seltzer. So really curious to talk and hear a little bit more with Brad on that Lisbon contest too later in the semifinals. But I think the disparity in which Velva won was the most impressive thing to me in the quarterfinals in Class A last week.
You must have copied my notes because I had the same thing. To be able to kind of bottle up Jillick and hold him out of the end zone after he ran wild in that first round and really did it all season. Plus, I mean, that was a 5-point game back in early October. And to see Velva, the way they handled Trinity, I think was most impressive. Brad, how about you? Anything else besides that one kind of surprise you?
Mandan beating Davies again. The second half rally and how that game really changed. And to say special teams doesn't matter, I think we saw that in 2 3A games between the block punt in the Davies game and then that missed extra point in the West Fargo game. I just think, Mandan getting in as they did as the 4th seed and then doing it to Davies again, and then that game just did a complete 180 in the second half.
Yeah, and Bismarck winning without Isaiah Hoos, as you mentioned, it coming down to that missed extra point. But Isaiah Hoos, state's leading rusher, out for the rest of the season now, and so they'll have to go in and try to beat Cheyenne without their top back. And let's go to that. The 3A bracket is out for the semifinal matchup. Cheyenne advanced because of the COVID-related issues for Jamestown. Mustangs now host Bismarck High. Demons beat West Fargo. In the other semifinal, it's an all WDA matchup. It's going to be Century and Mandan. So 3 of the 4 teams in the semis are out of the WDA. Chase, let's start with the Cheyenne-Bismarck matchup. No Isaiah Hoos in this matchup, but last week it was Lucas Miller, Brant Kringley, Jack Steckler even had some more nice runs like he has all year. They held almost every opponent. Cheyenne's rush defense held almost every opponent to under 100 yards this season rushing. I think Shanley got about 110. But can the Mustangs do it again against this Bismarck rushing offense?
Yeah, 2 teams that really haven't played each other that much. Jody, with Cheyenne and Bismarck High first meeting since 2016. And to your point, Coach Gibson did a really good job, Mark, for Bismarck High. And I call it thunder and lightning with Miller and Kringley because Kringley's going up the middle, 11 carries for 60 yards. Miller had over 150 yards of rushing with 2 touchdowns. Then here comes Steckler to the left, Steckler to the right. They use them in different ways. And they also got their quarterback back as well last week. And if you bring your starting quarterback back with Caden Fisher, all of a sudden that can allow some more things that you probably feel comfortable with doing. But Bismarck's line was very impressive against West Fargo. I mean, they got over 200 plus rushing yards in that football contest. The biggest thing against Cheyenne, can you stop Erika Penu? Can you stop working team when he gets to the outside? Tribe doesn't get enough credit going up the middle. And then on the defensive side, I look at a guy like Alex Erloff. Last year we talked about some 2-way players for Cheyenne. They didn't have a lot, but Tyler Terhark was obviously the main guy. Erloff doesn't maybe do enough on the offensive side to make you go, wow, he gets all these stats and gets all these numbers. But defensively, with the speed that Miller has, and if Erloff's on the backhand side of a I formation with Bismarck High and he misses a tackle, Miller can break it for 50 yards for Bismarck with his speed. So Erloff, to me, Jody, in this game with the X factor, a 2-way player, he's going to be very paramount here for, a Coach Newton defense against this Bismarck High rushing attack.
I think that battle in the trenches is going to be really interesting because you mentioned it, Bismarck's offensive line with Doctor, Bauman, and the rest of those guys. but you're going up against a really good defensive line that Cheyenne has. And Abe Heston and Cole Menz, that is going to be so fun to watch. Two of the best on both sides of the line of scrimmage going head-to-head, and that matchup's going to be a lot of fun. Brad, Century was able to put up points against Shanley, but they gave up some points in that 49-28 win. They also allowed 350 yards through the air to the Deacons, which we know the Deacons are going to keep passing. We know they're going to fight to the finish with the Troy Mattern team. But this is now a Mandan team that also had success through the air earlier against Century. I think they passed for 230 yards against the Patriots back in whatever it was, week 2. Any reason to be concerned, though, if you're a Patriots fan? They've won 20 in a row after all.
I think with that, they got the early lead. They took advantage of that lateral after the touchdown. It was 21-0, so Shanley had nothing else to do but throw the football to get back in. Yeah. I was impressed. Schaffner really was, from what the parts I watched on Friday, was very impressive. Really a dual threat. You run for 100 and you throw for 134, and they were very efficient when they had to throw the ball. They were able to convert it at key times, and I think the offensive line is going to be key as well. I think if Mandan's I don't know if they can play from behind. I think they've got to hang around early on. Otherwise, if Century gets that running game going with Garcia and the variety of weapons they have, and they can win the battle up front, if it comes down to a battle of time of possession, I think that it's going to favor Century.
Yeah, and you alluded to Schaffner running the ball well. 0 rushing touchdowns for him in the first 3 games. Since then, in the last 5 games, 10 rushing touchdowns, and he's rushed for 100+ a couple of times in that span. For Mandan, Tyler Thilmoni, I think we'll see trying to haul in some passes again from Jace Lohman. He had 3 touchdown catches last week. Mandan coming off that physical game against Davies. Can they match Century's physicality for all 4 quarters in this one? It's going to be an interesting storyline. And guys, at the beginning of the season, I asked Century's Andrew Langang who the toughest player that he's gone up against in his career. He pointed to Jackson Dutenheffer for a Mandan. That's going to be a fun matchup to watch, isn't it, Chase?
It is, and you talked about Battle of the Trenches and the Bismarck High West Fargo Cheyenne game. You're going to get some Battle of the Trenches in the bowl coming up on Friday night. And the one thing Shanley did really well offensively, they spread out Bismarck Century and they negated the front 4, the Schweigerts, the Langangs, for Bismarck Century. If Mandan can take a script from Coach Mathern, put 3-4 wide, run the football enough to make them have to honor it, but really get it out quickly, that's going to be a thing. But Jody, if they're going up the middle, there's going to be some helmets flying around, I think, in the bowl coming up Friday night.
Yep. All right, let's hear it. Well, what are your picks? Who's going to be representing 3A in the Dakota Bowl? Chase, we'll go with you first.
The team that I've been picking, number 1, the media poll for quite some time, West Fargo Cheyenne. I just like what they have for Coach Newton. They're trying to do something they've never done in program history, which is go undefeated in a season, albeit it is a shorter year due to COVID, and also they've never won a Dakota Bowl championship. And I think they get the rematch with Bismarck Century. I think Century's got enough weapons, and with Schaffner, to Brad's point, his ability to throw the football to Foslin and to Eli last week, when all of a sudden Shanley brought 8-9 guys trying to stop the run, and it was one-on-one matchup, Century was able to throw the football with enough consistency. If they can do that again against Mandan, I like a rematch of last year's state title with Century and alongside West Fargo Cheyenne.
Brad?
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think Century just has too many weapons, and we've seen maybe a few kinks and chinks in the armor of Century, but they always seem to come through. And Cheyenne as well. I think, we talk about the running game with Pendo. I think defensively, they might be the best in 3A. They have Chase made a good point about Erlob in the secondary. And they don't have any weaknesses from the front line, the linebackers, or the secondary. They're as solid as they come.
Yeah, Oster, another good one in the back end of that secondary for Cheyenne. So I think I'm with you guys. I think it's going to be Cheyenne and Century in a rematch of last year's state championship game. Let's move to the Class 2A side of things, where the opening round went chalk, guys. Hillsboro-Central Valley, Beulah going to meet again in the rematch of last year's state championship. Then you have Kindred that's going to get to go out to St. Mary's. The Saints, of course, routed the Vikings last year, 42-0 in the playoffs. The Burros and Miners met in the regular season. It was a 23-14 Hillsboro-Central Valley win. Brad, is it going to happen again? Are the Burros going to keep winning over this Beulah team?
I am not so sure. I was very impressed with Beulah. They had a turnover early on, but overcame that against Central Cass. And really kudos to their offensive line. Aaron Ripplinger at center, and Mondra and Smith and Clout and Bufink, that offensive line. They won the battle against Central Cass. They ran for 400 yards, and the old Beulah Minor package looks sharp. I mean, they've got, that offensive line won the battle and a variety of running backs. I mean, they just, even at such a tight, unique format, they can run a lot of different sets out of that. Batest on the outside, they can use Skolsky, kind of get the yards between the tackles. And I know the first time around, turnovers were a really big factor. And, Beulah, I think, has got to set the tone early. It's not an offense that is set to play from behind, at least, maybe one score they can. But I think the battle in the trenches will be up front. But Beulah looked really good last week.
Yeah, I think there were like 2 interceptions returned for touchdowns for Hillsboro-Central Valley in that game earlier this season. So turnovers, like you said, gonna play a huge role. Chase, St. Mary's allowed 7 points last week. That's double their average. Any reason for concern for Dan Schmierker's team?
No, because that was a little bit later in the contest, and Bismarck St. Mary's had it pretty much well in hand. Colin Curl, by the way, 2 yards away from having 1,000 yards on the season for this senior, a guy that has 19 touchdowns rushing, almost 8 yards per average on the ground. And you know what? Kindred really had a dogfight against Hazen. That crosswind kind of took the passing attack of Ethan McKinney. Only had 1 reception in that football game. It was a back-and-forth contest, and Hazen kind of came out with more of a wing tee offense, a different style than what they saw the first time around. So Kindred had to adjust as well a little bit. Kindred really trying to pull a page of 2016. When they went to Sid Cichy Stadium, knocked off the Shanley Deacons, and got to the Dakota Bowl, they've been outscored in 3 contests by Bismarck St. Mary's all in the playoffs, 2 times in the quarters, 1 time in the Dakota Bowl, 142-6. So St. Mary's really has had Kindred's number. So to Brad's point about not playing from behind, if you're Beulah, Kindred in this football game's got to at least keep it 1 possession. You get one-dimensional against a Coach Schmeeker team that only gives up 118 yards of total offense, you're going to be in for a long day. But if Heinrich can get running the football, if McQuillan can make smart passes, and they can get McKinney involved enough early on and maybe get a turnover, make a special teams play, you never know what can happen once you get out to the second half. But the biggest thing for St. Mary's, they go out and they run away from people in the first half. The disparity between the first 16 minutes of a football game, St. Mary's already up by 2 or 3 scores. And Kindred can ill afford to do that throughout this game.
Yeah, Kindred, I mean, they have to play a nearly perfect game. That sets up my predictions for this Class 2A division. I think we're going to see St. Mary's and Beulah 0-3 all time against Hillsboro-Central Valley. But I'm with Brad on this. I don't know if Brad's going to end up picking Beulah to make the upset, but if Scott Olson needs some bulletin board material, here it is. I think Beulah is going to pull off the upset against Hillsboro-Central Valley, and I think it's going to be Beulah and St. Mary's in the championship. Chase, what do you got? Quickly.
I kind of want to go away from Beulah right now, because I said the same thing. I looked at the 4 turnovers against Hillsboro-Central Valley going, geez, that's a difference maker. And, try to be a little bit different here, but I like what Coach Dooley's got going. I mean, the second time around asking Coach Olson, he goes, Dooley does such a good job of varying his offense the second time around, where you think you got something, stop. And then here goes someone running by you for 30, 40 yards, down the football field. So I'm going to go St. Mary's and Beulah, and not to sound like the same old, but same old, I guess.
Brad?
The one thing I'm talking to Jim Dooley last week, and I was asking him, I said, is St. Mary's, how good is St. Mary's? And the one thing that was really striking that he told me was, he says, they're very good and we respect them. And he says, we're going to miss not playing them when we go to 11B next year. He says, but we're not afraid of them. He says, so I think he says, we've split the last about 10 times we've played them. And I think they're on a roll right now. I think they, again, with that style of offense, Zuroff's another guy. He broke a big run. He had over 100 yards. I just think they're rolling right now. And Scott Olson's team is still very good with Hillsboro-Central Valley, but this seems like there's maybe been just a little something missing. I like Beulah and St. Mary's as well.
Great. Scott Olson's playing this in his locker room before the game. There's no doubt about it. Let's move to Class A. Langdon-Edmore-Munich advanced to the semifinal round by virtue of the Oaks forfeit due to COVID. Cardinals get a state championship rematch, another state championship rematch here in the semifinals. They get to play Bishop Bryan. The other semifinal, a doozy, 3rd seeded Velva against 2nd seeded Lisbon. We'll get to that one in a bit. Brad, for all the success that the Cardinals have had, I mean, I feel like it's almost boring to talk about because it's the same old thing. I mean, they're going to blow out teams every week. The Rumfo twins are going to do a whole bunch. They're going to put up great stats, great line play, well-coached team. Here they are trying to win their 36th game in a row. We should be savoring this, shouldn't we? What they're trying to do here against the Bishop Ryan team that's pretty darn good too.
Yeah, you kind of look at some of the powers in the past, and I think one that I thought of was Cavalier, probably in the mid-2000s. Some of the athletes they had, and Brady Trenbeth, and some of those guys, and kind of reaching that territory, I think, with Langdon. And yeah, I mean, it kind of seems almost cliche and old hat for this team, but they are enjoyable to watch. And kudos to Bishop Ryan to go out to win at Shiloh the way they did. And that's the one thing I got to say in the last couple of years. They've won on the road a number of different times. I think it was Bowman County last year with a road win, and same thing with Shiloh. They're going to have to, like I said, they're going to have to get force some turnovers. They're going to have to kind of, some extenuating circumstances here to try and shut down Langdon. But they're certainly battle tested. I'll give them that.
Yeah, Jackson Feller, I mean, he's put up another great stat line this season, rushed for over 1,400 yards, 22 touchdowns. But Simon and Grant Rumfo, I mean, you can book those guys for a bunch of touchdowns each and every week. Last year in the championship game, they combined for 6 scores in that 42-14 win. So going to be an interesting one, but I think Langdon-Edmore-Munich is obviously the odds-on favorite. Chase, Lisbon, Velva. I mean, this is a matchup that I think we all kind of circled when the brackets first came out, because we're going to get to see Jordan Sowers, Hunter Schultz for Lisbon, that great rushing attack against Velva led by Gage Florence, who ripped off 4 touchdowns last week. Who has the better ground game in this one? I'm going to give you the hard question, Chase.
Yeah, we've talked about battle of the trenches. It might not be ever so true in this football game, guys. I would say this, Velva, be wary of the first play from scrimmage for Lisbon. Back-to-back times in the postseason, boom, it's 60, 70 yards, and you look up and you're down 6-0 to a Coach Girding team that just likes to grind out type of football games. And earlier this season against Oaks, they had a drive that went 6.5 minutes, 80 yards down the field, and they capped it off. And both teams kind of want to do that. Both teams are going to want to run the football. So to your point, Jody, I go to who can stop the run first, who can get to 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11 with their defense, and force either Selzer to have to throw the football with consistency for Velva, or Hunter Schultz have to throw the football for Lisbon. We don't talk about Lisbon throwing the football because they never have to. They're up by 2-3 scores, and they just keep running Sowers left, Schultz right, up the middle, and here we go. So at the end of the day, Jody, to me, the team that can get 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12, win the battle up front, and force a team to have to throw the football early in this contest is going to be the difference maker. Because if you're going to let Lisbon run, they're going to run it all day. If you allow Velva to run, obviously you mentioned with what Gage Florence did against a really good Dickinson Trendy defense, he can match it counter for counter. So this, to me, bring your boxing gloves, bring your welterweight, match, because this is going to be mano-a-mano in the trenches come Saturday in Lisbon.
And I know he's a different type of back. Nathaniel Gillick, more of a high-up running back. Jordan Sowers likes to get low, so it's a little bit different. But Velva just shut down Gillick last week, and now they get another big challenge in that Lisbon rushing attack with Schultz and Sowers. I'm really interested to hear the picks here. Brad, we'll lead it off with you.
Oh, boy. Well, I'm going to go Langdon-Edmore-Munich, and I was talking to one of the Lisbon assistants, and I said, what do you think about Velva? And he says, it's like looking in the mirror for the type of thing. I mean, it's not going to be easy. I think Lisbon with the home field, I think it's a touchdown or less. I think it'll be really close, but I think Lisbon and Langdon will combine.
Yeah, I'm going with you. I think Langdon-Edmore-Munich and Lisbon in a matchup that I think is pretty close. I'm going to go with the team that doesn't have to travel the way that Velva's going to have to travel kind of across the state to get to Lisbon. It's a shame that either one of these teams has to lose because they're both really, really good. But I'm going to go with Lisbon and Langdon-Edmore-Munich. Chase, make it quick.
Yeah, Brad said battle tested for Bishop Ryan. Bishop Ryan's 2 losses to Trinity and Velva this year by a combined 6 points, so they are very well battle tested. But Langdon's a whole nother animal, so I'm going to go with Langdon, and I'm going to go different. Give me Jersey Selzer and give me Gage Florence. Brad, I know you're former Lisbon High alum as well. I think same thing. 1 possession game. This might come down to who has the ball last, who makes one big defensive play. Just to be different, I'll go Velva. So there's bulletin board material for Coach Girding, Jody, in Lisbon.
Is this how you're going to catch up to me, Chase, in the point standings for pick'ems?
hey, there's not many games left, so I got to do something different. We've been saying in the first two rounds of the semifinals, 9-man might bring something different, but I got to change something up.
To 9-man we go. Speaking of travel, like we were talking about Velva going to Lisbon, the Beach Bucks get to make the trip all the way to Cavalier. I think this is a 6-7 hour drive for Mike Zier's team that they're going to be making. And you won't hear many complaints, though, for Mike Zier's team. They haven't played – they played one home game since September 11th. That's crazy. But they knocked off the defending champs from Kidder County. They get to take on Cavalier. On the other half of the bracket, second-seeded Lemoore-Litchfield-Marion hosts the other Region 4 still left in Linton HMB. Brad, let's start with Cavalier. Mayport CG and its high-scoring offense, they just ran into a buzzsaw last week, and Cavalier's been able to get it done playing physical football. Are they going to be able to do that again against Beach this week?
I think so, and they scored 52, and they fumbled, 3 times in 4 drives in the first half, too. I mean, think about that. They're really clicking right now. And I mean, for Beach, one thing I will say for Beach, this is probably not going to phase them too much with wins on the road already. That region has proved to be Region 4 has proved to be very balanced. We saw that last year with Kidder County. They were not phased with getting through that, and then the way they finished. But I think Cavalier's on a mission too. I think falling short last year in the championship against Kidder County, I think they look like they're really focused to get back to the Dome.
Yeah, Beach isn't going to be flashy. Going to hand it to Tyson Matter and see what they can do. But at Cavalier, I just feel like they have a lot of really good weapons on that team. In the other 9-man contest, Lemoore-Litchfield-Marion took down North Border 32-0. More Lobo domination. We've seen it all year, guys. It's been such an incredible team. And I know they played against Satcham at Mayport CG earlier this season, probably one of the top players that they faced, but I don't think they've played a dual threat like Linton HMB has in Schumacher and Trey Jacob. Lobos are going to need to be ready here, Chase, for a 4-quarter game, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned Jacob, again, a bowling ball type of running back, low to the center, and then you got Brett Wendell, who just follows the mode graders up front against North Border. A good shot up, but Wendell, again, over another 100-yard performance. The least he's got this year is 90-some yards and 11 carries in 1 football game, so even those numbers are still pretty good. Wendell, 1,700 yards rushing on the season, 19 touchdowns. Potts is a well-balanced machine with Colton Ness. We talked about the super sophomore enough. And then Linton HMB, these two teams know each other quite well. I understand they're not region rivals this year and last year, but going back to the old 9-man and Class A days, they know each other pretty well between these two towns and these two programs. So I think this one has the ingredients, just as Lisbon and Velva does, to maybe be the game of the week when it comes to these two squaring off with Linton HMB and Lemoore-Litchfield-Marion for a chance to go to the Dakota Bowl. Lemoore hasn't been there since 2003, and that was in Class A. It's been a while for Linton as well, so one of those two teams will take that streak at least to the side if they can get the W on Saturday afternoon.
All right, final games to pick here. Who will be playing in the 9-man championship next week? Brad?
I'm kind of looking forward to LLM and Cavalier and see if that would be. I think that would be a showdown matchup, and I think it's going to go both ways. I'll take both home teams.
Yeah, Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll go Cavalier, and there's something about this Linton Lion team that I'm like, I don't want to pick against them for some reason, because in the polls the entire year you've been like, oh, they've been right there. But I think Coach Delabar's got this team well schooled. I think they got enough speed again in all 3 levels, as we talked about. I think Lemoore-Litchfield-Marion gets it done ever so close at home on Saturday.
Yeah, I think Beach's miracle run, I mean, it's been fun to follow for sure, but I don't see it going any farther. I think Cavalier's just too good at too many different positions, and a team that is battle-tested. They were in the Dakota Bowl last year. I think they get back. And then I think, like you guys mentioned, Lemoore-Litchfield-Marion, another team that's just so loaded. But I think about Linton HMB. I mean, they took Cavalier to double overtime last year in the semifinals. So could they possibly do it? I don't know. It's going to be tough. I think Lemoore-Litchfield-Marion finds a way to pull it off, maybe a 1-score game, and they get to the Fargo Dome. So it should be a lot of fun. Guys, thanks a lot for doing this. Next week, we'll hear more from just the players and the coaches. We'll table our discussion. We'll maybe meet up at the Fargo Dome to talk about these games. But be on the lookout for also our Players of the Year, guys. We're going to be announcing those for Midco Sports Network in a couple of weeks. So coaches, get those emails in, message in as we try to decide our Players of the Year. And we'll be announcing the honorable mentions, finalists on Varsity Sports Live, a special edition on November 20th for that. And that is, of course, a week after the Dakota Bowl. Brad, Chase, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. And we'll see you at the games this weekend.
Thanks, Jody.
Thank you, Jody.